Good evening, everyone. Is it working? Okay, sure. So my name is Sharon Mukhale. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. So this is the official launch of the SRC AfriFund, and this has been, in the works for quite a long time now, and we're really excited to launch this tonight with all of you present and all the people that are joining online. We're especially excited to have the Vice Chancellor, Professor joining us tonight, and also later on the Chancellor will be joining us online. Quite excited as well to see some of our executive management members present with us today to support us, and also really excited to see other departments who've really played an integral role in the establishment of the AfriFund, and also our SRC student leaders, and also our international students present with us here today. We welcome you, and we're looking forward to enjoying this evening with you together. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Nyarazu Sambadza, and I'll be taking over from Dr. Sharon Mukhale as the new SRC International Students Coordinator. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm just going to share a quote by me, which I feel encapsulates some of the core foundations and motivations as to why we're even here, why this fund was even came to fruition, why you be even giving us your money, and all of these things, why you should care about the fund. So, as Africans, we are but different variations of the same person, where difference is not a barrier, but the beginning of exchange for the advancement and appreciation of alternative possibilities. I believe it is a uniting force and a personal wish to see this aspect and more of the Ubuntu spirit emanated in our daily lives, because our humanity demands it. So I can't unpack that tonight, but you will see even on your program, there's so many students that will be performing, and there's speeches, for example, the poetry that will encapsulate so much of what this fund means, why it was formed, the historical, social, economic implications, and etc., etc. We hope you do enjoy it. Thank you again for showing up. Just some house rules, and I see everybody's already following the house rules, so that's great. Please do stick to the social distancing rules. Please keep your mask on. Thank you. Please do keep your mask on and social distancing. That's perfect. If you are to greet someone, if you want to speak to them, that is okay. This is a chilled space. This is more student focused, so it's all relaxed and it's going to be enjoyable. So you'll find the program attached in your emails and the confirmation emails of that Sharon would have sent to you earlier. And then up next, we have our deputy mother, the VC, Prof. Mangeti Pakeng, to kick us off with this amazing event. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, VC.
Thank you very much, program directors. And welcome to everyone who's here. This is an important occasion, momentous really, to see SRC finally launching this fund. And in thinking about what is it that I can share with you today, I thought I should do some work. Just look at why do we need this in a country such as South Africa and in a university such as UCT, why it makes sense for us to do this. And I thought the best way to start is to look at which countries, how many countries. I'm going to be long, you're going to be tired, you guys. I recommend that you sit my seat. I promise you I will make it entertaining because I keep hearing the music and it's beautiful, right? But you know, we township girls are not used to this posh stuff. All right, so I thought I should check which countries offer free higher education. Because I think that's always the easy thing to demand, and it's always good to compare which countries offer it, and when they offer it, do they offer it to foreign students or international students, and how do they offer it? It's important. We are a university, so even as we make demands, as we craft our projects, we've got to be educated by data, what's out there. And at the moment, in total, 24 countries provide free tuition at university, and 16 of those countries are based in Europe. In South America, it's only Uruguay, Brazil, and Argentina that do not require fees for tertiary education. And of course, in 2018, South Africa became the 4th country in the African continent to offer some form of free higher education. I'm saying some form of because it's not for everyone. It's for the poor and working class who come from families at the moment up to the total family income of 350,000 rands. The other 3 countries on the African continent are Morocco, Egypt, and Kenya, and those offer free higher education. I haven't looked at the detail of how those 3 countries offer it. So you can think about this. Only these 4 countries offer it in Africa. And you can ask yourself, is there ever a chance that South Africa would offer a free higher education to foreign or international students? I can tell you now that it is only fair to say no. And you can fight now because you are not yet president and you're not Minister of Finance. But actually, even as you fight, you'll realize that actually it just shows that you will never be Minister of Finance. It doesn't matter in which government, because you'd require to balance the books. Okay, but let's look at what other countries are doing, because sometimes we think, well, it's only African countries that don't do this. Other countries do it. Okay. Only 5 countries will accept international students onto their free courses. You might want to take notes, just in case you want to study overseas. Finland, Germany, Iceland, Luxembourg, and Panama. Those countries will offer free higher education to any student, whether you're international or local. And then France, Slovenia, and Sweden offer free tuition to foreigners. But listen to this. They only do it for foreign nationals who are from the European Union, because they are part of the European Union. So if you come from outside the European Union, these 3 countries will not offer it, right? And it's just because it is costly, and so countries are focusing on their own citizens. So in a way, I'm like, it's probably not possible. But what does it mean? Does it mean we just throw in the towel and say, well, it's for you to see how to come out? Before I get to how we answer that question, let me say, why Africa? I mean, why is it important that we as Africans care and bother? It's not me, I promise you. So why should we be, it's back. Why should we be interested that more young people on the African continent get higher education, irrespective of whether their country provides it or not? We should be concerned, or we should be interested or want it to happen, because actually, in my view, youth is actually our only competitive advantage in the world as a continent. Our young demography is the only competitive advantage that we have in the world. I mean, at the moment, we are told, I mean, I read that at the moment we have about 60% of Africa's population is younger than 25. This is huge. 60% on the continent is younger than 25. I looked at the graph. I saw that the population, the young population in Asia, in China, is declining, and we are going up. So actually, by 2100, Africa would still have the youngest population worldwide, and the median will be about 35. So that's, and you can say, why is it a strength? Young people will provide the workforce, will be able to do, we will be the place where the world will need people who are able, who are in the working age. At some stage, I think many continents will look at us in terms of when they want human capital, just in terms of age, right? But if we don't have these young people educated, it might actually be a downside, because if you have lack of skills and a disgruntlement of one way or another, socio-political and so on, it can cause instability in the country. And so we might not even be useful. We might not even be able to trade with that ever in the world. So my view is that the youth are a strength on the continent. And this is a strength that no other country in the world has. Africa's young population could provide a powerful opportunity for development and beyond. But we know that despite the GDP, the growth in GDP in the last decade, African countries struggle to create jobs and to equip young people with the skills required to service their economies. So our economies are struggling because, in fact, young people are not, because our African countries are not managing to do that. But frankly speaking, we can sit here and complain about our African leaders, but you are the ones who should take over African leadership. But it's not going to happen. By the way, you can complain as much as you like, and when you get the opportunity, you do exactly the same as they're doing, or even worse. And that's why it hasn't changed. Even though we've had activism after activism, we've had the same leadership taking over and things remaining the same, because nobody stands up to do the right thing. There's an inclination to want to take care of self. But I want to say, we have an opportunity to make this young demography work for us as a continent. But without education, this young demographic has no benefit for us at all. In fact, it will be a disadvantage. So if we want to benefit from this demography, we must focus on education. We must focus on developing skills. We must focus on not only that, but focus also on developing the values that we would like to see in our leaders. And you know, this has to be your individual commitment to doing that, because if we don't do that, I mean, there's populism these days means that you go with the mass, right? Nobody wants to stand and take a moral high ground. Everyone wants to go with the mass, because then maybe that says you are woke if you scream the same thing over and over again. And I just want to say, you have to realize, if you look back on the African continent, you look at the universities that used to lead in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, are nowhere at the moment. There are many universities that used to lead. We can mention names. We can mention names of universities on the continent that people who travel from everywhere, Ibadan or Makerere or, you know, University of Dar es Salaam. I mean, people who taught me would boast about, we met in Dar and he was in Makerere. Yo, this is what happened. You don't know. You are here in the top university in the continent. It never used to be the top. It's not like everyone from everywhere else on the continent was coming here. There were other places. You have to worry about what happened to those universities. You have to worry about what happened to those universities, and we want to be able to be strong enough that those universities can rise again. And I'm saying this because I think if we're going to be a benefit to the African continent, we've got to get good education, at least that understands the continent, that's not just good for itself, but good for the continent as well. And so it's important that we preserve and make sure that the institutions that are still here grow good leadership, and we grow to be those and continue to make them flourish, not only for us, but for the continent. Oh, well, I forgot Fort Hare. Fort Hare was another one. Yes, Fort Hare, by the way, Fort Hare was also one of those. Many leaders in Africa were met, actually. Many leaders of many African countries, they met at Fort Hare because many of them were trained there. And of course, it's still here, but it's different. And of course, Bolesa was one place where they were met, but of course, we know that it doesn't exist that way anymore. It's now separate universities. So we have to focus on how do we make sure that each one of us gets higher education. It's not going to take one government. If you are an international student, you come to UCT to study, it's a great thing. You are here and you probably have a scholarship. Rule number one, make that scholarship work for you. Make the most of the opportunity if you have a scholarship. Always remember that there are other young people back home who could have had the opportunity and they don't. Make the most of it. In an unlikely event, because of course you wouldn't be allowed to come into the country if you don't have the funding. But sometimes if you're doing second year or whatever, you find that you're back, your scholarship has ended and so on, and AfriFund is here to assist. When you get help from AfriFund, please know that it is not here only for you. Guys, it is not here only for you. Just like NSFAS is not here only for the people who are getting it in South Africa. NSFAS, it is also here for the child who's still being born in Masiphumelele, and their mother is a domestic worker. And they will only get here 15, 16 years later. They want to benefit from NSFAS. You misuse it and you look cool, it's bloody selfish, it's not woke. There's nothing wise about that. It's everything selfish. You cook your papers so that you get it, you look cool. You can buy those expensive shoes and do the nails, but that's not saving Africa. Maybe that's why we have other African universities not so visible. I'm saying to you, when you get that favor, use it, but know that there are other people who will come after you. So if you're going to benefit from AfriFund, please know that there are other young people in Lesotho, in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Sudan, who perhaps might need it when they get here. And so if you take it, even though you have a scholarship, that's not woke, that's not smart, that's bloody selfish, that's actually sinking our continent, and that's why we don't get any better. And if we know, then maybe it means you are in my prayer that people like you never get anywhere to the top. Because actually, that's why our continent is cooked, because everyone works only for themselves and they want to line their pockets. And I'm saying, I wish I could say to everyone who's going to benefit from AfriFund, know that nobody is entitled to it. It doesn't matter how much you suffer, you're not entitled. It's something that we get in because the leadership of students in 2021, when the Chancellor gave them 1 million rand to use for their priorities, they decided to take half of that and set up AfriFund. Nobody's entitled to it. The Chancellor could have given it to students at TUT. He could have given it to children in Orange Farm who need school. South African children. Of the poor, there are many. If you come from outside South Africa, you probably think we are wealthy. We are not. Some of you are much wealthier than the people locally. But we know the fact that you made it to UCT, you're a potential leader for this continent. You're in the top university on the continent. And you are the ones who will take Africa somewhere. And so if there can be help for you to get that degree, to get the skills that you need, to build the networks that you need once you grow, and when you get out of here, you go out there elsewhere in the continent, and we together in different countries build a strong Africa. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing it here. And that's why I want to say thank you to the SRC for doing that. We, as UCT, do not just want to be the best in the continent. We've committed ourselves to being the best for the continent. And to be the best for the continent means that we try as much as we can to share with the rest of the continent. Note, our first responsibility is South Africa. That is not xenophobic, but it is not xenophobic. It is not xenophobic. I want you to know that. Our first responsibility is South Africa. We are a public institution. We are funded by the public purse, by taxpayers' money. And taxpayers' money, only South Africans pay tax. And that's why our responsibility is first to South Africa. But we stretch. First of all, we defy the SADC agreement that says you must cap your numbers. You can only take this number of students. We take more. We at UCT, we defy that agreement. We take more students from SADC than the SADC protocol allows us to do, because we understand that our role is to be the best for the continent. We've committed ourselves to that. We are not able to support international students because we can't even support all the South African students who need the support. And so we are saying to you, when you get that support, make the most of it. We can build Africa. I'm going to stop on this story. Many of you probably think this challenge of student fees starts now. It doesn't start now. I went to university. My first year was in 1984. I know you were not born yet. Sorry. But that was my first year, right? And, you know, there were so many students who struggled. Bursaries were not many. It was in the middle of apartheid. The 80s were bad. I mean, there was everything, shootings, necklace, everything in the townships. So we were at university. And of course, so I was in the SCM. And in the SCM, what we used to do, my dad, for example, had taken a loan at work. My dad used to work for the SABC. And he would take a loan. My brother was at University of Zululand. I was at University of Putatswana. He'd take loans, and then the loan, they give him a check, and then they will deduct from his salary. I pay it, and of course, they deduct everything, you buy books, and then there's a balance, and you can draw that balance. There were many students whose parents did the same, and they would give a loan. And in the SCM, around February, there would be someone who comes and say, there are students here who cannot pay their fees. And they were South African students. And those of us, and they would make a call for us to help them. Remember, I mean, I didn't grow up very poor. We don't have posh clothes. You'd get 50 rand when you go to school. It must also bring you home, the 50 rand, right? And then we would take our balances from our student fees, those of us who had change, and we would donate it. Yes, we would donate it to the students who were part of the SEM and they didn't have fees. We would donate it. There are students who still I can remember who graduated because we donated. And maybe that's why blessings are overtaking us. I wish that we had that attitude that if you can donate, maybe you have a balance. Rather than buying a new phone, you can donate to AfriFund. You know that it's going to help some needy student. Let me tell you, if they're at UCT, they are worth your support. They are worth your support. They wouldn't have made it here. So if you can donate, you're not a fool. You're investing in something worthwhile. You're investing in something worthwhile. You can do it. I know that many of you get pocket money at home. You can just make yourself get used to giving just 20 rands to AfriFund. It will be tough the first few months. You'll get used to it. I can say that to you. I donate 20% of my salary every month to UCT. 10% goes to fees must fall bursaries, and 10% goes to supporting Black women postgraduate students. 20%. When I started, I was like, I remember Sydney when I started with 10%, and I said to Sydney, I want another 20% last year. Sydney said, oh, Khetty, but you're already giving 10%. Are you sure you want to give another 10%? That will be 20% of your salary. I said, yes. I thought, I said, yes. And I knew that the first 2 months is going to be tough because I must. Right? Yes. But if there's no pain, it is not worth it. It is not worth it. What do I want to give? I want to give from things that I don't want, that are not going to make me feel uncomfortable. I'm giving to the fees, the Rhodes Must Fall scholarship, and to the scholarship for women postgraduate students because I believe in them, not because it's easy. And I'm saying to you, when you give your 20 rand or your 10 rand monthly to the AfriFund, it will feel a little difficult because suddenly you can't buy that water that you just bought at Random J on a Saturday. And you might even think, but you need more. You need a new pair of shoes, you need whatever. It's not because I don't have needs. I do. And you will do too. But you can give that because you believe in it. Let's stop the idea that giving is for the wealthy, that we Africans, what we know is to come with a begging bowl. We never put anything in the begging bowl. That's why other nations take us for granted. We should start giving to our own causes. And that's why we are so grateful that the Chancellor gave this money to you as the SRC, and the SRC decided to use it for a cause that's worthwhile. I hope you give. I'm going to give my 20 rands per month, right? And see how it goes. You should, I mean, I'm almost broke, man. I mean, you know, like there's so many things that my salary goes into. Sydney knows, right? So many pockets, the Baxter, what. You know, it's crazy, but you can do this. Blessings will overtake you. People will wonder, why does it seem like you're okay, even when things are not okay? It is that blessing. It is that blessing. So be obedient, give, let's support Africa, and one day we can say we built it. So congratulations to the SRC. Sharon, thank you so much for your leadership and the work that you've done in this. Let's see AfriFund grow, and we will remember the work that you started as the international students rep, as well as the work that the SRC started in its term, the 2021 SRC. Thank you very much. When you see me running out, it's not because laborane, it's because I have to speak at another conference just now in about 45 minutes. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Prof, for that speech. So much resonated with me, and I'm sure it resonated with everybody else as well. And I just want to highlight again that, yes, it might be difficult donating and building our African continent, but change is uncomfortable. If there is comfort, there probably isn't growth. And we know because of the history of why this fund is even here to begin with, there has been a lot of uncomfortable historical conditions that led to why these students have economic impediment. So also with what Prof said about African leaders, we can complain and etc., etc. But the change comes from us, the new leaders. So putting those two ideas together, I am proud to bring to the stage Declan Dyer, the former president of SRC, and Dr. Sharon Mukhale. She's a doctor now. As the new leaders that champion forward the building and the growth of the African continent out of a very discomforting time and a lot of work that went behind all of this. So putting those two together, thank you so much, and we will continue it as the new SRC. But to just hear about how this came to be, what kinds of uncomfortable conversations or work that they've had to go through to ensure the growth of it for the African continent, not just South African students, but the African continent in its entirety. They will tell us about that. Do enjoy.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Thank you so much, Prof. That was a really lovely opening talk. And I just want to say, I'm not a doctor yet. After tomorrow, just crossing fingers. So the AfriFund is really a concept that has been in the SRC for quite a long time, much as like the SRC Assistance Fund that a lot of you are aware of. So in 2016, the SRC realized at the time that a lot of international students were struggling with debt, and it goes unnoticed often most of the time. Like Prof said, that you're not allowed to come into the country without a source of funding. But a lot of things happened, and last year with the COVID-19 pandemic, when I had just gotten into my role as international students coordinator, we realized a lot of students struggled because of the pandemic. And then it did seem at the time that the only solution to a lot of the emails that we were getting, requesting funding, asking for, some sort of financial assistance, which, UCT obviously couldn't provide at the time because they are also limited by the rules that Prof has already outlined, like we prioritize South Africans first. And at that moment, we realized, as the SRC, we're not really held by, obviously university rules, and we don't follow university rules most of the time. So we decided, you know what, this is a concept that's there, let's work on it. And I can't talk about it without mentioning how Lauren from Ayapo was so helpful in also just outlining the criteria and getting the correct policy requirements to be in the founding document. So we worked on that for more than 6 months. And then Libo from DAD as well was like, you need a fundraising strategy for this. It's not like the SRC Assistance Fund. Now you're asking people to give to non-South African students. So how are you going to do that? So we came up with a fundraising strategy, and luckily during the year, the Chancellor decided to give the SRC money, and we're like, this is the push we needed to go forward. And the SRC sat down and we're like, how are we going to split the money? I can say now the whole of the SRC wanted to split the money and give international students most of the money and say no, they needed more than South African students, but we decided to be fair and split it 50-50. So that is how we came to this point, and we're really just grateful for UCT in supporting us through this journey. And I think it highlights the importance of also just supporting students' initiatives and supporting student ideas, because a lot of student leaders also do have ideas on how they can transform the space, because most of the time we're the ones that are on the ground, we're the ones getting the emails. And also just to say to the SRC, university structures are there to also support your ideas, and it's really important to just try and work together in order to, you know, achieve your goals, because it is possible. A lot of people are like, oh no, you can't get it done in a year, you know, it's impossible. But it's difficult to navigate the red tape at UCT. There's a lot of it, but if you set your mind to it, you can definitely get it done. There's a lot of things that we still need to change, you know, for our students, and there's a lot that we want to do, but you don't have to work in isolation. There's a lot of support structures to help you out. So Declan will just take over.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Greetings to everyone. Of course, to acknowledge the presence of the Vice Chancellor, the sitting President of Students of the University of Cape Town, members of the current and outgone SRC, members of senior leadership, Lekgotla, alumni, guests, friends, students. Thank you so much for joining us. It's actually an honor to have you all here as we officially launch the AfriFund this evening. To us, the AfriFund represents the tiny step in the generational mission for the attainment of one Africa, a borderless Africa, an Africa for all Africans. It is part of our historic responsibility, because at the end of the day, and as we've seen over the last few days, Africa only has itself. Our responsibility, firstly, is to each other. For too long, of course, and I'm not going to jump into too much because Sharon has covered it, there's also been an absence of the support structure for African international students at UCT. And we're so glad that we finally are able to bring forward this fund and hopefully make the student experience a tiny bit better at UCT. Of course, this is also, I'm sure, quite an emotional moment. This started very soon after we entered office in December last year. And in fact, it was in the last 2 weeks of our term of office that we actually finalized the fund, having consulted widely across the institution, having gained support across the institution. It was in that final few weeks. I do want to reiterate what the VC said around donations to this fund. We as students do have the responsibility, but equally, of course, to encourage all alumni of the university, all friends and donors of the university to contribute to this fund. Of course, to also call upon the university community beyond students, staff members, members of council. This is our collective responsibility, this historic responsibility I spoke to earlier, to contribute to this fund. Lastly, of course, just to extend my on behalf of the outgone SRC, to extend our gratitude to Dr. Sharon Mokhale for driving this fund since its inception, to the members of the outgone SRC for your support, and patience in the term of office, and of course all stakeholders across the institution, Yapo, DAD, student affairs, undergraduate funding, and all other stakeholders who participated in some form. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Declan. Very much, Declan. Also, I forgot to mention, Tasneem Salasa from Financial Aid, shout out. I just promised that I was going to shout out to everyone who helped make this possible, because it wasn't definitely just, you know, an SRC thing. A lot of people did contribute to it. And just to say thank you also to the incoming SRC for allowing us to use your platform and your funds to make this happen. So now I will introduce Ria and Chris, who are also international students in the university. So Ria and Chris, do you mind coming forward?
Good evening, everyone. Standing in front of you is Riabetsu Mpapa. I was born in a village called Daliwe in Kuting in the mountainous kingdom of Lesotho. Before I go on, I should say that it is an honor and a privilege to be standing here to share my experience as an international student at the best university in Africa. So before I go on, I have to say that I was very naive while I was in high school, because I've always known that I had always known that university was expensive, and I knew very well that my parents could not afford university given our circumstances at home. But somehow I had this thing of I'm going to work hard, I'll do well at school, and then I'll go to university. Mind you, I had also seen the fees must fall movement and everything. So I really knew that funding was a problem, especially higher education. But somehow optimistic little Ria thought, no, if I work hard and I get good grades, I'll be definitely at UCT. I did my matric in 2019. I applied to numerous bursaries, scholarships. It was written very clearly. One of the requirements, be a South African citizen. But I saw that, I really saw that this is a requirement, but I told myself, maybe someone will overlook that and they'll see my result, and then they'll be like, shame this child, given her circumstances, she's done everything she could do, but that did not happen. 2020, I get my results, nice, I've passed, nice, good marks. I've been accepted to all universities I've applied to. Funding, then that was heartbreak now, because I've been accepted. It's like you have this ticket, it's like you can go, but you can't go because of funding. So then, so at home, we get to a conclusion that, okay, UCT is a bit expensive, and my parents have saved, we have some funds to at least, it's like roughly 30-something thousand, right? That's how much they've saved. They know it's not enough, but that's all they could save from the little they have. So UCT is too expensive because if I want to come here, that 30,000 is just the initial payment, and then I still have to pay by July, and then my parents can't raise such funds in little time. So we decide, okay, let's go to another university that's accepted me, but they're a bit more, they're not as expensive. So we go there, so I have registration, I have like, it's a bulk amount of money. So we're like, okay, no, surely I can study, and then in my second year, hopefully things will work out, and then I'll be able to come to UCT. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. As an international student at that university, you had to pay all of your fees upfront before you started the year. So that was like heartbreak, because I kind of had hope in me that, okay, even if I don't go to UCT, at least I'm still doing something. And then that didn't work out. Now I'm at home. My friends are posting all week statuses. That was most probably the most difficult time of my life, because I had always looked forward to going to university. I've been with these people, we're talking about it. Hey, have you written your NBTs? This is up, this is up. We're all excited. And then Mina, I am now at home watching everyone go to school. But then COVID came around, everyone was back home, everyone was confused. That's when I looked back and I was like, okay, maybe this was actually a blessing that I was not able to go to school, because had I gone to school, my parents would have been paying for me and I would have been at home. Who knows if I would have done well at school, all of that. So now I'm like, okay, thank God, because everyone is at home. I'm not missing out anymore. Everything is okay. So that happens. But despite all that, I got to volunteer. I started tutoring. There's like great things that happened in that year. But at that time when I was going through that, it was really sad. And to see because my parents felt like they had failed me, and that was really sad. So now it's a matter of, I'm really sad, but I also can't show these people because they're already beating themselves up. So it's a matter of crying in your own little corners when no one can see you. But then early this year, I'm now a recipient of the Marshall Scholarship that overlooked. Yeah. So this year, early Jan, I got the Marshall Scholarship, and I'm standing here because of that scholarship. I don't know what would have happened this year, but I am grateful to be at the University of Cape Town this year. The Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful tool that we can use to change the world. But today, I'd like to take his words and alter them a bit and say, education is the most powerful tool that we can use to advance the African continent. Today, I'd like to thank the donors that have graciously donated towards the AfriFund. And your donations are not only helping an African child attain higher education, but they're helping advance the African continent. I thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I find you all this pleasant evening. I would like to start off by acknowledging the presence of the Chancellor, Dr. Precious Montipe, and our Vice Chancellor, Professor Mamoketi Pakeng. We appreciate you gracing this occasion with your presence. My name is Kudzai Chris Katera, and I'm an international student from Zimbabwe who's just finished his degree in electrical and computer engineering. I'm also the former thank you. I'm also the former chairperson of the Zimbabwean Student Society for the period 2020-2021, and I'm really delighted to be speaking at this event. A fund like AfriFund could not have happened overnight, and it required a lot of planning, teamwork, and a bird's eye view for details. It came about as a practical solution to some of the challenges African international students were facing during their period at UCT. With more than 4,000 international students at UCT coming from over 100 different countries, 700 of them being Zimbabwean, this community of students really needed a combined voice which would listen to some of their concerns and needs and would be addressing them. And today we celebrate the AfriFund launch, which is addressing some of the financial needs these students had. There are many upsides to being at the best university in Africa, some of which the diversity that it offers. You meet different people with different cultures. You also have high quality education through the top tier lecturers that we have in our institution. We also have a dedicated international students office, which assists international students with whatever needs that they have. And finally, you also have the career services, which offers students different career options once they're done with their degrees. However, there are also some challenges that international students face, such as student visa issues and some financial constraints that they encounter during the duration of their studies. As a student, I quickly became cognizant of some of these issues my peers faced because in some cases, they would extend their years of studies by a few years, and some students even drop out altogether because of that. Realizing these issues were ongoing and recurring, I took it upon myself to campaign to be the chairperson of the Zimbabwean Student Society so that I wouldn't only address the symptoms of the problem, but I'll be able to look down to the root cause of some of these challenges. And through that position, my team and I managed to engage the ambassador and the consulate's office, and also managed to link with the International Students Office in efforts of trying to assist international students. As a result of some of those meetings, we actually then thought of launching a Zimbabwean fund. But through interaction with other parties at UCT, like the SRC, we met a lady called Zintle, who was the then SRC international rep, who we worked close hand in hand with, and they shared that the SRC had plans of having a broader fund, which is AfriFund, which will be directed towards African international students. Fast forward a few years later, Zinhle passed the baton to Sharon, and most recently, Sharon passed the baton to Cheryl, and we have arrived at this iconic event today where we are celebrating the AfriFund launch. Today, we celebrate the launch of the AfriFund, and I believe that the AfriFund will be able to help a lot of students remove the financial and mental strain that they have and be able to focus on their academics. It will empower them to not have finances as a barrier to their success and be able to focus on holistic growth and be able to complete their studies. Finally, as the former chairperson of the Zimbabwean Student Society, I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone who's worked tirelessly behind the scenes to get this fund to be a success. You persevered through the pandemic and moved with the mission, and you're selfless enough to be people for others. I do believe that the AfriFund is the embodiment of the positive, practical change that we require in society to build a better world for all. I would like to thank you all for joining us this momentous evening as we celebrate the launch of the AfriFund. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris Katera. And I just want to add on to what former President Declan Dyer was saying about this being a historic responsibility, because it perfectly leads into the next performer. It is a student, third year, BA in Law and English. And just to remind you, this is a student because this is very student focused for students. So why not have them speak with their hearts, just as the speakers have just now, and others speak through poetry, others speak through music. Now this next one is going to speak through poetry as to when I heard this poem, and you're going to feel everything that I felt in this poem, it sat with me because it gives, I love history. It gives such a rich, obviously history is vast. You cannot really contain it within one poem, but you get the gist of it. And this gist is powerful as to the historical conditions that I've mentioned before that led to the formation of AfriFund. So I'd like to call on Dumoluhle Moyo for performing his poem, Black Motion.
Good evening, everyone. I also go by the name Dark Chocolate. You laugh, but it's true. And what I do is I'm a storyteller. These stories have existed in me long before I existed, and these stories will continue to exist long after I'm gone. So I hope you enjoy the story I'm going to share with you. It's entitled Black Motion. Ngaphansi kwesikhumba somzimba wami, struggle is woven ever so tightly around the fabric of my African-baked melanated skin. Every crevice, corner, pore, and follicle. Screams of mothers and fathers jumping overboard to escape the plantation fate. Sons and daughters drenched in adolescent blood, unarmed, dodging Bantu education bullets on the streets of Soweto. Grandmothers and grandfathers crouched within the Matebele Green. Reds paused to avoid the 5th Brigade. See, but struggle is not the only shade of my melanated skin. From the military prowess of Dombo and Chaga, my forearms are glazed in Kaun formation greatness. My golden stool brown face was chiseled by the Asante stonemason's perfection. It is as beautiful as Senzangakona. The Xhosa, Khoi, and Eritreans consummated and birthed my light-skinned tongue. It is as slick. It is not as slick as Achebe, nor Chimamanda's pen, nor does it carry the wisdom of silky white-haired Soyika. My thighs are as dark as a blend of the Biafran and Fetani, sprinkled with the Gokura wound and Rwandan genocide. See, the many shades of my skin tell stories, stories of pain, stories of joy, stories of triumph, stories of failure. But like Mbeki said, I am an African. I'm ahead of my time like Sankara. I'm the intelligence of Cheikh Anta Diop, the bravery of Nkwame, the elegance of Ramses III, the wealth of Mansa, the divisiveness of Gobowi, the determination of Wangari Maathai, the youthful exuberance of Ndlozi, the stubbornness of Kama I, served with a dash of Nkabugo's presence. I grew in the belly of Indlovukazi uNandi, and so I am a king. The global north has attempted to nurture me as nothing but a struggle, conditioned me as a problem to be solved. They have attempted to erase my Aksumite trailblazer DNA and demonize me like Gaddafi. But the Winnie in me will not be silenced. The blood of the Mau Mau is a resident of my veins, and so I shall stand strong in who I am. Because in the end, it is hard to kill a king who is self-aware. Black Motion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dark Chocolate. So we are running a bit behind, but nonetheless, we've all just been waiting for this main speaker. So Dr. Precious Moloy Montipe is our next guest speaker, and we mainly invited her because we feel like her work and her footprint on the continent is representative of what we're trying. Profession, but she also holds many titles. She's a philanthropist, a fashion entrepreneur, and most importantly, what we hold pride in as UCT, she is our chancellor. So without any further ado, Dr. Precious Moloy Montipe.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful event. I'm so sorry that I cannot be with you in person. I would have loved to have touched those instruments that you're playing. I would have loved to have seen Dark Chocolate closely and actually enjoyed that wonderful story that he's just told us. Thank you very much. I am really moved by the compassion of UCT students, especially our student leaders, for responding to the plight of your fellow students with this AfriFund initiative. I really feel honored to be part of this gathering, especially at this time when the world needs more compassion from every one of us. We need more caring leaders. We need more compassionate leaders. I therefore applaud you students for initiating this concept, from Zintle to Sharon to Cheryl and the SRC president. I really, really applaud all of you for this initiative. By supporting our African international students community, we support our own development and we prioritize the building of relationships that will sustain our continent in the midst of global crises. Throughout my travels on the continent, and I've been fortunate over the last 20 months to travel to just over 20 countries on the continent. And I have observed the energy and the dynamism of our youthful population that Professor Mamokgethi spoke about. I truly believe that it is through good quality education, investment in skills, and technological driven innovation that we will be able to change the trajectory of development of our continent. Africa's development is not a zero-sum game. We need each and every country on our beautiful continent to grow and prosper if we ourselves are to grow and prosper. UCT, as the best tertiary institution on the continent and one of the best globally, must attract and support the best minds and the best talent on our continent if we are to continue to be globally competitive. Recently, at the SDG Summit that was hosted by UCT, as well as the Harvard University Virtual Symposium on Partnerships in STEM, Innovation and the Future Africa, it was made very, very clear that all of us, for all of us to see how diversity and innovation from our continent brings the best solutions, because these solutions are informed by our lived experiences and by our own unique context. And UCT, with its world-class infrastructure, access to the best resources, best lecturers, and a globally recognized faculty of knowledge, is really well positioned to attract and harness the greatest minds from Africa to contribute to the global body of knowledge. So I really welcome the AfriFund launch, not only for the benefit it brings to our international students, but because it is a necessary preparation for Africa's youth to become globally influential through their expertise and their leadership. I really want to thank you, the SRC, and your former president, Declan Dyer, as well as your incoming president, for your vision, as well as the Sharon Zintle and Cheryl, as I've already mentioned. I want to thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Mamokgethi, for your leadership. And I also want to thank our guests, Ralph Mupita and Professor Salome Masiwe, for supporting this initiative. Thank you. The SRC has informed me that of the 1 million rand that I've donated to them in support of their courses, they have allocated 500,000 to this fund, and I'm in full support. And going forward, I will be encouraging business, alumni, and other stakeholders to support this fund with me. I wish you the best on this wonderful initiative, and I wish the African international students community a greater sense of belonging on our vibrant campus. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Precious Moloy Montipe. You can be rest assured that the money that you donated to this AfriFund is going to a good cause. You're not only investing in one student, you're investing on the African continent. So, up next, love it, in the background, the Marumba Jam Band. They are not only students, but they are Black African women. That's a triple threat. Yes. So they're just going to perform for us, just to get the mood going after many, many speeches and so much to digest from the history and the poetry, the speeches and everything. So do enjoy.
Hi, thank you so much for that lovely music. So our next guest speakers who are going to be sharing their international students' experiences, we have Duncan Agwenyi. So he's a master's student in scientific computing. He's originally from Kenya and also a former SRC student leader. And then we also have Zintle Geluk, and you've heard a lot about Zintle and Sharon and Cheryl. So Zintle, was my predecessor, so I took over from her last year. So she'll also be chatting to us just now. And then also we have Tendai Mbanje, who will be joining us from all the way from Gambia. He's a former student leader in the university as well, and UCT alumni. So he's working in the AU as a legal intern. So without further ado, Duncan and Zinke, you can come down.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for the very interesting introduction. To our Chancellor, Dr. Precious Moloy, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Pakeng, the guests present today, student leaders and students, good evening. So my name is Duncan Angwenya Ziavad, and I've been in this institution for, I think, quite a long time. And during this time, I've really had a chance to take part in a lot of student leadership. I'll just give you a very brief introduction as to how a Sambo International Student Fee Structure looks like. A very simple snippet as to why you should grace this fund with actually your donations if you can, with the minimum amount you can. So, like every other student within UCT, you're, of course, let me take an example this year, expected to make payment, for example, by March, it was by March 12th this year, which is usually some initial payment. And if you're late, of course, you get that 8% penalty, although it is once off. But for non-SADC international students, we are required to pay, and I quote one of the UCT's Facebook, which says, an international fee over and above the course fees for tuition and the international administrative fee. And it is very well stressed, over and above, so that you don't make a mistake and come and say, but no, over and above. For non-SADC students, this international fee, if you're going to take an undergraduate qualification that falls under higher certificate, bachelor's or diploma, it is 47,000. But if you're from the rest of the world, that's outside of Africa, it is 66,000. And this is applicable every year and must be paid prior to registration. Now think about it. Already before you come from your home, before your parents are able to book for your flight, before you think about accommodation, before you think about anything, there is 47,000 rand, which UCT is saying you have to pay before registration. And you can't go to the faculty and say, oh, you know, I'm going to pay later. No, that's why UCT has something called pre-registration. Basically, you can't even reach the faculty, or the faculty doesn't know if you will be registering before you're cleared by the international fees. So that is really a very big blockade to many international students. Now, as I said, I've been a student leader before, and I've witnessed many international students' financial hardships in the short time that I've been here. I've seen students' aspirations get destroyed as a result of these challenges. And those who have been able to hold on long enough haven't been able to reach their full potential. I've seen many of them try to take on part-time jobs, you know, to offset accommodation costs and everything. But we all know we are not able to reach our full potential with this, because while you're trying to work as a waiter to raise, you know, someone for electricity, the other students are studying. I've seen, as one of our student leaders quoted, we have seen very brilliant students who could have graduated in 4 years, graduate in 6 to 7 years, not because of academic hardships, but because at some point they went to a airport and they couldn't be able to pay the initial fees in time. They had to go back home and take a gap year. Some took a gap year for 2 years to go and work to raise these amounts. And during that time, remember, there's amount which like outstanding from previous years, and UCT doesn't really continues what we call, there's penalty for not paying in time. So with time is like you have all these accrued fees. At some point you find like the higher percentage of the money you're paying is actually a penalty for not being able to pay in time. So there are very few of us, I included, who have had an opportunity of being rewarded with a scholarship, just like one of the students mentioned initially. Well, not all scholarships are so great. I'm happy that I find myself in a scholarship, which is the MasterCard scholarship, which actually pays for everything. Now, as I said, there are very few scholarships that can actually fund international students. And so far, I only know of a few. One which was mentioned was Moshal, and the other one which I know is the MasterCard Foundation. I know with Moshal, if you don't do well in your academics, they kick you out. While we have why I call the MasterCard scholarship a prestigious scholarship, it's because for some reason you understand as a student can come in first year, it is a new country, new culture. Culture shock can kick you, okay, I almost said, culture shock can, can be up, and at some point, most international students, I think if we check, we find it tired during our first year because, you know, it is a new culture, there's culture shock and everything, we're trying to fit in, and this does affect our academics. Some of us are late for many reasons, one of them, biggest of them all being visa. And now we have COVID-19, mean you have to pay for the screening and everything. You can say, being an international student in itself, before you arrive at UCT, you've burnt a lot of money. And yes, there are those who are able to pay, but most of us, we aren't. And hence, I would like to ask that if the Vice Chancellor and the Chancellor can also look forward, lobby for scholarships like the MasterCard scholarship for international students for this institution to really be a great thing. Now, let me give you just a small history about the AfriFund. I mean, you've heard Sharon did indicate this was an idea which started in 2016. But the idea was, you know, you can have an idea and you can talk about it all you want for a year, but if you don't put it down to book or write it down and, you know, start progressing, it is just an idea. Now, I remember in 2018, in the first International Student Forum conference, student leaders site, and I must say during that year, there are very powerful student leaders around. All societies work together so much, and we sat down and said, this thing of, you know, having to go to the SRC assistance fund, we know very well they take local students first. You know, you have to give to local students first. If like you're really needy, then maybe they can help, maybe with food or something. We said, no, man, there's this idea which has been around saying AfriFund, there's no document. How about we sit down and start working on this? And then the student leaders, Letabo Maonyo, later Kaila Zukizo picked up. They drew down documents, drafted, worked together with the IAPO and DSA to draft documents. You know, the standing rules, the documents that where like all the AfriFund like started. Then this year was very impressive because this idea was actually championed to the national level. Remember during this year we had what we call the National International Students Forum, which was held in August 2018, where like Letabo, actually it was Kaila, stood there and said, okay, where is the National International Students Forum? We can work together to actually make the international students' experiences very powerful within these institutions. I mean, we lead in different universities, but we have this idea of the AfriFund. What do you think about it? They were very embraced, and this led to establishment of what we call the Western Cape International Students Forum, which I'm not sure if it is still working or not, because what happens is that in student leadership, sometimes these things fall away with time. It's really dependent on the strength and of the student leaders, like who take the baton. So it is still there. I know the Western Cape International Student Forum is still there, but the thing is that most of these institutions which form part of it, they look up to UCT, they look up to you for leadership. And you know very well in UCT, establishing anything which is policy related takes time. There are a lot of structure you have to pass. And I'm very happy, starting from Kaila to Zinle to Sharon, who finally actualized it. It took time, it took hard work. And I'd like to take this time to ask Cheryl, like, now, Sorry, I'm not sure if I pronounced your name wrong. Let me just look at this so I don't take too much time. Okay, I'm not great reading this. So I could like to take this time to actually ask the student leaders taking the next baton, Cheryl, to champion this not just for UCT students, to the national level again. We went, gave them an idea, but they waited for results, and finally we have results. Champion to the next level and let them look at you for leadership. Tell them how you did it, because we not only want like international student experiences to be good at UCT, but we also want it to improve, to grow. And this is really a good find. And as an international student, I must say I'm happy. This is not only just a beacon of hope for international students who might face financial crisis next year or years to come, but it is a show that me as an international student, I can rely on my university not only just for financial challenges, but I can now hope that if I'm in Kenya and I have a problem with my visa, I can know very well, even if UCT is saying we can't help you today, I know at some point they'll be there to assist me. This is a good indication that the university is working hard towards actualizing its goal of creating solutions that are good for Africa through what they call, an Afropolitan niche. I still don't know what that actually means. Just to conclude, because I think we're over time, let me look for this quote, which says, by Malcolm X, says, education is the passport for future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for today. Now, this is true in many aspects. We all know that for us to succeed in life, what matters is the foundations which you lay. And this can be people today will tell you depends on the people you network well in the university, people you did what. But above it all, we know the biggest foundation of all for us to succeed outside it is education. Now, I hope this AfriFund will really lay a good foundation for us as international students, knowing at least if I don't have food, I can go to an SRC office and hope to be helped. And hope is a powerful thing. And thank you for all student leaders who worked so hard to give international students hope. And I'm really happy that I can stand here today before I left and say an idea which I saw was born like 3 years ago, has finally been actualized. And thank you so much. And please, guys, donate 100 rands, 200. We'll appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I'm so shy, guys, so bear with me. So yeah, a lot of student leaders have come forth and have really spoken quite a lot about the journey of the AfriFund. So with me coming into the role in 2020, there was just a lot of challenges, and then COVID hit also. And amongst those was the task of promoting international students' experience on campus and building the AfriFund alongside, as Chris mentioned, the International Students Forum, Ayapo. We had to just sit down and really enhance it, because it was that thing of a lot of international students would come to the office and they have no funding, and it's the most painful thing to see potential being thrown away because someone can't pay. I feel like that is the biggest injustice you can do ever. Because despite your good marks, they just be like, okay, there's nothing you could do, and now you have to go back away. So it speaks to a question quote by Richard Atias, which says, as African economies boom and businesses are created, one of the big questions of this growth rises is that of third level education. How can Africa develop a knowledge infrastructure to revival that of the West? A sort of Harvard University in Africa. And so that question really struck to me, because the AfriFund would be a contribution to this, because we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, but to Africa as a whole. And that being through the basics, which is education, because without education, you can't, if you want to start a business, you need to learn. If you want to do music, you need to learn. Everything starts at the basis, which is education. And so It's also helping to develop our communities and bring up future leaders that are going to come after us, because I know through the AfriFund now, if you guys are having little brothers or sisters still coming to the institution, they won't have the struggle of the fees, because already alone, it's hard having to deal with accommodation costs. Sometimes you don't have accommodation, sometimes it may be academic challenges, but now with the AfriFund, it's that base that now they can come and register and get help. And as Duncan mentioned, even if maybe you don't have food, you know that you can go to the SRC office and get help. And also, I'd just like to take time and thank Sharon and Cyril, am I pronouncing it? Cheryl and Sharon, it sounds so similar. Thank you so much for taking forth the baton. I know it hasn't been easy, you know. These things, there's a lot of red tape sometimes that goes over, especially now with the pandemic being on. And I really think that this is the start of greater things, and I hope that it grows forth. To everyone, you know, let's just, I think Pageng said it earlier on, the contributions of, even if it's just 20 Rand, 50 Rand, you know, because it's really going towards something quite bigger, and we can all build the Africa that we want. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zinhle Khalek. And yes, Duncan, I will be taking over the baton and ensuring that African international students will have a good experience here, of which, to be honest, without a good financial experience, it really takes a toll on emotional, spiritual, and academic performance and experience at the University of Cape Town and any other institution abroad. So definitely, I have some projects planned ahead for African international students that I'm looking forward to implementing in 2022. So you can relax. You can be rest assured that's going to happen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the student leaders for all that you do. Definitely going to carry it forward. This next poet, Nyasha Chiwoniwoni. When I listened to this poem, beautiful, powerful, it's expressing pride on the African continent. And I think you also get the feeling that you got from the previous poet, Dumoluhle Moyo, just a different vibe to Africa that is beautiful. That is, I believe that, yes, while we learn about colonialism and etc., I do also believe that our existence goes beyond colonial history. And this poem expresses that pride. So I do hope you enjoy it. She's first year information system student. So already she's brave. Female women, come on, guys, a round of applause. Love it. Thank you, Nyasha.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nyasha Chouanoni, as introduced by Cheryl, and my poetry journey started back in high school. It was born out of a dark time in my life where I felt depressed and I felt anxious, and that was mainly because of academic pressure at home. I come from a very academic family, and even though I was doing quite well, it didn't give me satisfaction, and it sort of annoyed me and depressed me to see that other students were able to participate in sports and participate in other cultural day events, and I was really just focused on my studies. But something good was born out of it, and I found something that I am quite good at, and I really enjoy it. So I hope you enjoy this poem. heard Africa's large open spaces run that hills sunset. Any torch get the first time gets hot within my ration beast. Say no more Africa, but a great sight. Say no more. Insults and obstacles, dictatorships like many must many can I don't want to answer the question why I know you must. You stick to that strength and power. One and your and and your and your magnificent. We a lot alwan love. That's Almighty Judge. Almighty don't say Almighty
Did you enjoy that? Yeah, I told you. From one powerful woman to other powerful women, we're going to get another performance from Marumba Jam Band. I hope you do enjoy this next performance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. So another very important guest speaker today that I'm introducing is the current SRC president, Mila Zibi. So please join me in welcoming Mila to the stage.
Izwe lethu iAfrika, izwe lethu iAfrika. On an occasion such as this, perhaps we should start at the beginning. So let me begin. I am an African. A vote of thanks seems to be an easy task, but it is one of the most difficult tasks. How does one begin to undertake such a task? On behalf of the Student Representative Council, not only that of the 2021 and the 2022 SRC, but that of the 2016 SRC under the leadership of Risang Moseli, right through the current SRC, we want to thank all of you who have come to this event. Like fine wine, this is indeed proof that no one, not even an army of men, can stop an idea whose time has come. We want to thank those who organized the event, Sharon and Cheryl, from those who prepared ginger beer and water, to those who placed this very same banner here. We want to thank the media team, those who are taking pictures of us. We want to thank those who are providing sound and those who provide the most important aspect, food. Often these small things are overlooked, but this is what shapes and makes an event. Without this, what is deemed as small things, we would not have any launch or any event. We want to thank you as the SRC from the deepest of our hearts. We want to thank our lovely artists, the poets, the marimba players who make us travel back into the time and into the ages of our ancestors. They make us relive the arts and the heritage of our ancestors that run through our very same bloodline. Yes, today we are listening to Mapiano, but we already have also a heritage of our own, that of our ancestors. And it is one that we should embrace in whatever form that we can embrace. We want primarily to thank those who constitute the main reason as to why you are here. African international students who have chosen to study at the University of Cape Town. We want to thank the International Forum and all structures that are meant to support international students for constantly communicating to the SRC the challenges that you are facing. We want to thank the Office of the Financial Aid, the Finance Department, the Department of Student Affairs, the Office of Development and Alumni Department for maintaining relations with donors and continue to supporting students. We want to thank one of the most important offices, IAPO. We thank you from the deepest of our hearts. We want to thank the Vice Chancellor, the fabulous academic, for her commitment and support of the establishment of this fund. Most importantly, our precious Chancellor, Dr. Precious Moloy Montipe, who, without her generous donation, would not have had the necessary funds to establish and support this kind of initiative. We hope the Chancellor will continue being generous and supportive towards SRC and all student representative structures within the UCT. This marks a fundamental Pan-Africanist approach that shows the commitment we have towards servicing Africa. The University of Cape Town earlier in this year committed to uplifting fee blocks for all African students. And now we have just launched and established the AfriFund. This shows the commitment that the university has under the community the university has under the leadership of Black African women in the form of the Chair of Council, Babalo Ngunyama, the Vice Chancellor, Mamokgeti Phakeng, and our Chancellor, Dr. Precious Moloy Montipe. The commitment that they have to developing UCT into being an African university rather than a university that is located in Africa. To all African students in UCT, let us continue to doing the great deeds. It is Prof. Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe who reminds us that to us, education means service to Africa. Let us charge forwards towards a Pan-Africanist future. Let us charge forwards towards a United States of Africa that Muammar Gaddafi envisioned. From Cape to Cairo, from Morocco to Madagascar, Africa shall be free. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Mila Zivi, for 2021-2022. It is going to be a great year, and as you can hear from him, the passionate about Africa that's emanating from him, which is definitely going to be carried forward from Zinhle Khalek, Dr. Sharon Mukhale. And yes, as is mentioned, the most important part, food. So that will be served right at the end. But before we do get to the food, we're going to just show you how to donate to the AfriFund. We're giving you free food, so I hope that's enough motivation to put a little bit of money into the AfriFund. So we're going to have it on the screen.
Thank you. So as you can see on the website, I think my mouse is disappearing. Oh, thank you so much. So we just wanted to demonstrate how the people who are joining us online and those of you who are on here, is it showing? Okay. It's not sure. Oh, it's showing now. Okay, great. So this is the alumni website, which you can just find on www.alumni at .uct.ac.za. And then you can just look at it's very easy to use. So ways to give, you just click on ways to give, and then you choose the method of payment that you want to use. So I like using EFT. So you just click on that if you want to. And then you will see, click on that. It's a drop-down button, and then you will see different funds that you can give to. And if you wish to give to the AfriFund, which we encourage you to strongly, even if you have your 20 rands right now, you can just click on the AfriFund project and then say your name, put in your details, then choose which amount that you want to give. So that is how you can give to the AfriFund and other UCT projects that are available on the alumni website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So when you donate, I just want you to have this question in mind, ringing at the back of your head. UCT is the best university in Africa, but for who? Who has access to it? You'll find many of those answers embedded in this whole evening. the historical, economic, social, etc., that were shared through poetry, even the music itself, and all the speeches, the leaders that spoke, everybody that contributed. UCT is the best university in Africa. For who? Keep that in mind. We hope you do donate. You may now enjoy the food, and there's also a photo booth outside that you can take. We have a photographer who will be taking beautiful pictures of you. And again, so actually, thank you for showing up in our African regalia. You guys look so beautiful. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your donations, whether you made them now or you'll be making them afterwards. And goodbye.